Yeah, I'm right there with you. Holland's he's a talented guy, but he just doesn't take himself all that
He's so
seriously in there.
frustrating. He has so much talent. Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live, folks. I'm Connor Rowntree and we're talking UFC today. That means we're joined by our guy, AJ MMA. It's AJ Schullo. AJ, how are you today?
Doing great, Connor. We're coming off a fantastic event last week. We'll recap it a little bit, but Knockout Kings for both of us came through. I'm looking forward
Multiple
to
Knockout Kings. We got like 2 or 3. It was awesome. But yeah, let's go back to UFC 266. And for me, my biggest takeaway is that Alexander Volkanovski earned the championship. Well, I do think he won the first Max fight. I think he clearly lost the second. So it's not so much Max fandom as is, I wasn't okay with the decision. And I thought it was quite egregious. Even going back and watching, I think Holloway still won 3-2, and you can make the argument to 4-1. But then again, who cares? We're through it. He was purple in that choke. We were on this show, we were talking about it, and I said he hasn't passed a jiu-jitsu test. Let's see him grapple with the best of the best, because I called Ortega an anaconda, and Ortega got him. And he had him purple to the point where watching those interviews after, Volk said, how close was it? It was close enough that I thought I was going to lose my effing belt. Ortega said, well, that was so tight. That is why that guy is the champion. Well, he didn't necessarily pass the jiu-jitsu test of defense. The heart of the champion, Alex Volkanovski. I can't wait to see him and Max throw down again. Obviously, Max has to fight Yayar, but that's my takeaway. Cheers to Alexander Volkanovski, man. Heart of a champion. And he proved that, to me, he is a champion among champions with that performance on Saturday night. AJ, what was your takeaway from there?
Yeah, it was a phenomenal performance by Volk, but my biggest takeaway was Dan Hooker over on the prelims. I think he proved a lot of people wrong here. Coming off a knockout loss, he looked better than ever, in my opinion. He showed better wrestling. He showed better top control. And Nasrat Haqparast historically has pretty solid takedown defense. And on top of that, Hooker dominated the striking exchanges too, just didn't let Nasrat get in a rhythm, had him backed up completely against the fence the whole time. He talked about how hard he worked in preparation for the fight. So you love to see it. I think that Dan Hooker solo show for me in terms of like a lasting impression.
Yeah, and I think that something important about the Dan Hooker performance is the fact that I don't know if a lot of people know this back home, and I don't know if we really touched on it last week, because I think we missed touching on it before. He flew in and landed in Las Vegas on Thursday from New Zealand, weighed in, made weight, recovered, and went out and kicked some butt. And what you said, I think is a great point, was he displayed some wrestling that we've never seen in Dan Hooker's game. Imagine in that final 20 seconds of that third round against Poirier, where he had Poirier almost out of the fight with another 10 seconds. Imagine if he mixed in a takedown there and started landing those elbows. That's a scary thought with Dan Hooker. And I'd really like to see that evolution in his game. And I'm glad you brought that up, AJ. What are your takeaways from anything else? By anything else, I mean Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, it's just a matter of her picking and choosing at this point when and where she wants to finish the fight. She's just so dominant. I think you made a good analysis on your take for the fight. It was just up to her. I mean, she hurt Murphy late in round 4, or during round 4 rather. Perfect shot behind the ear with right hand, and then just finished her as if she had done it 1,000 times already. So just such a great fighter is Valentina, and we knew that Murphy's very tough going in, and that's still true. However, when you have such a wide skill gap, a finish could still easily materialize just because the damage that's accrued. It doesn't matter how tough you are. If you're taking enough of a beating, the fight could just very well stop. Everybody has a breaking point. So yeah, Valentina Shevchenko, just phenomenal performance by her.
Well, I think you actually just made a perfect leeway into the main event for this upcoming weekend. We got Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. And now one thing I should note about Thiago Santos, and AJ, I'm sure you picked up on this too. I think he had one of the best performances against John Jones. But in that performance, he tore his knee. Since that performance, we have not seen that same movement, the same ability with kicks. Actually, we haven't seen the same fighter. And I think that is still going to pay dividends against Johnny Walker, a guy who's got the reach advantage, who's much younger, who's faster, who's arguably stronger. And I think Walker, if he can keep this on the outside and get Thiago Santos moving, I think Santos could be in a lot of trouble. And I think it could be, much like you said, it's 5 rounds. And when is the referee's discretion if Johnny Walker has Santos backed up against the cage using his range and those powerful shots? And it could lead to a stoppage. I'm leaning towards Johnny Walker in this one. I like Santos. I loved him when he fought John Jones. I think that was the best challenge of John Jones's career outside of Alexander Gustafsson. And I really like Santos. I just don't think his knees are there anymore for a guy like Walker who can present those lateral movements, who can do those feints, get in and out, exchange in the pocket, and still threaten from outside the pocket with kicks. So I just think Walker presents too much and too much speed for Santos on Saturday night. That's why I'm actually leaning towards the less and the less, because I think Walker could probably get a finish in the third round if he just goes and pours it on.
Yeah, I like the less and less too. When you look at Johnny Walker, he's fought 6 times in the UFC, and 5 of them ended in the first round. So most of them ended in under 3 minutes. He's a chaos type of guy. Like you said, he's got the age advantage. He's a few years younger than Santos. He's got the reach advantage, but he hasn't shown to really like fight like a tall fighter. So I feel like there's just going to be some big exchanges here, and I think that either guy is capable of hurting the other. You mentioned there are definitely some concerns on Santos, the injuries that he sustained. I still think he's a more technical striker than Walker, though. His durability isn't the greatest. Like we saw Santos knocked out cold by Musasi. He was also knocked out by David Branch, who's not really historically a big hitter. And Walker certainly is dangerous. However, Walker, if you look at his stats, his striking defense is 31%. That's one of the lowest, if not the lowest, striking defense rates I've ever seen. His hands are down, his chin is in the air. And we even saw just his last fight against Ryan Spahn. He was knocked down twice and almost finished there. And he was knocked out by Corey Anderson, who's historically not a big puncher. So I could see Walker winning inside the distance. Don't get me wrong. But as far as a pure prediction goes, I got to side with Santos, the more technical striker, who's more proven. And should this fight get extended, even though we don't think it does, I trust him much more in a 5-round fight because he's been there and done that against much better fighters. So I think Johnny is exciting. He's always much watched TV, and this is just an absolute banger of a main event. But that said, I'm still going to side with Thiago Santos, and the less and less is going to be my liking for Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, I'm with you on the less and less, but I'm going to have to lean towards Johnny Walker. I mean, I think the reach is going to play the advantage from the lack of movement. And when Glover Teixeira at almost 40 years old is putting the cardio pace on you and chokes you out in the third round, that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence in Thiago Santos in that cardio. And I just, you know what? He hasn't won since obviously he lost the Jones fight, 3 straight losses. I'm not particularly sold on Johnny Walker. There was a lot of hype on him when he came in, but I mean, 4 finishes out of 5 wins in the UFC. You know, he got back up. He finished Ryan Spann. If he does get clipped, he's a wild man. I agree with you. I think Thiago Santos has the more technical striking, but I don't trust his cardio. I just don't trust his legs. I don't trust his movement anymore. He doesn't move the same. When you watch that John Jones fight to the Glover Teixeira fight, like he's a slower human. And I think against a younger guy that has such a vast reach advantage, I think Walker has an 82-inch reach. So it's going to be massive. Yeah, Walker has an 82-inch reach. So if he can actually be smart, I agree with you. He's not the smartest fighter from an IQ standpoint, but if he can execute the proper game plan, I'm leaning for Mr. Walker. But the good news is, for Monkey Knife Fight purposes, we're both taking less and less, folks, because realistically, I think somebody's probably going to get dropped. All right, moving on to the next one. AJ, why don't you lead us into this? Have a little fun here.
So we are kicking over to the Kevin Holland and Kyle Daukaus fight. Very, very interesting matchup considering Kevin Holland, we've seen time and time again, historically does not have good takedown defense. We saw that in 2 consecutive fights, but this was an issue even before he lost recently to Victorian Brunson. You know, he was taken down several times by Darren Stewart. He was controlled. Gerald Mearshart took him down several times past his guard. Kyle Daukaus, not a great wrestler, but he's a capable one. Also a very good submission grappler. So the way I see this fight going out, I think it gets extended. We were talking beforehand. Both guys are very tough to finish historically. And the good thing about the more and more here is, even though they're not active from a significant strike perspective, they're very active in terms of the clinch damage and when they're on the ground and in top position and bottom position. So I like this, the value on both of them, even though 98.5 seems really high. Kevin Holland has actually eclipsed this strike threshold in a relatively similar matchup, kicking back over to that Darren Stewart fight. Kevin Holland in 15 minutes, and mind you, he was getting his brains beat in there in round 3, landed 163 total strikes in a 3-round fight against Darren Stewart. And Kyle Daukaus has eclipsed his threshold in 3 of his 4 UFC appearances. So I think in a fight that we probably see go the full way, And we could easily see Daukaus just get some top control, and Holland just kind of pitter pattering him with his like hand slaps in the clinch and from bottom position. I could easily see them both eclipsing this strike count. So even though it's a high number, I'm going to go with the more and more here.
Yeah, and I'm actually completely with you there. And one of the fights that I wanted to look back on because of that was how Derek Brunson actually, because I'm with you. I think Daukaus has the ability to take Holland down because that's been the weakness. At least that's going to be the game plan. And if not, they're still going to go into the clinch and throw those strikes. But when Derek Brunson did take Holland down, if you look at the numbers from that fight, Holland landed 36 significant strikes, right? So we're going to imagine most of those are on the feet, maybe an elbow or two. He landed 190 total strikes. So those little pitter patter, those count. And those are strikes. And if he's on the bottom, he's going to be doing that again. Let me just put that out there again. 36 significant strikes and 190 total strikes landed. Like, he gets it done in the striking department. Just because you don't see everyone and it's not the clapping sound from a hard punch landing doesn't mean those strikes don't add up. So I'm actually comfortable with the more and the more on this. I'm with you again, riding with you. As far as a pick goes, I mean, Kevin Holland, I feel like, has the abilities to do this if he just takes himself seriously. Like, you see him laughing in fights. I mean, he just got absolutely dominated by Marvin Vettori. But finishing, like, the natural talent to finish Jacare Souza from the back with the up fist and the up kicks, like, it's just he's as a fan, he's frustrating to watch. As an analyst, I just don't trust him, and that's why I'm leaning towards Kyle Daukaus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Holland, he's a talented guy, but he just doesn't take himself all that seriously in there.
He's so frustrating. He has so much talent.
He's got the advantage on the feet, in my opinion. I think he's the more technical striker. He's also got 5 inches of reach, and I think he's better defensively and more varied. But if Daukaus just puts him on his back, it doesn't matter. So when you are able to land takedowns and earn top control, in my opinion, that is the most predictive method predictive way to win rounds on a consistent basis. If you got the opponent on their back, you have the potential to pass their guard, land ground and pound, work for a finish. It just is a better optic look in the eyes of the judges if you're a fighter that's finishing the round in top position and racking up control time. So I'm with you. I like Daukaus as an underdog pick again, but I think that the narrative is Holland is improving. I believe that. However, is it enough to stuff the takedown attempts of Daukaus? That's what we're going to find out with certainty, but I still don't trust his takedown defense.
And I want to add one more thing for the folks at home. If you still aren't with AJ and I, Daukaus, before his last fight against Phil Haas, who's an excellent wrestler, out-wrestled his opponents in his first UFC fights, getting 7 takedowns and just absorbing 1. So in 3 UFC fights, he took down his opponents 7 times. If you don't think he can take down Kevin Holland based on what we've seen of Kevin Holland, watch some more tape. On to the next one. Sorry, it's just so right there. It's Nico Price versus Alex Oliveira. Nico Price, man, talk about putting the hammer to the nail. He is so much fun to watch. Another guy that just has so much talent and has the volume to keep going. And I just think that volume is going to overpower Oliveira. I love Cowboy Oliveira, a veteran of the game. So much fun to watch. But I think he's lost, 4 out of his last 6 or something. And I just think Nico Price has too much speed, too much want. He has too much want in him. And I think he's just going to overpower him with strikes and those wide shoulders that he has.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Yeah, he does have some big shoulders, that's for sure.
Weird shoulders, man.
I think there's an opportunity to capitalize on some recency bias here, to be honest with you. Price has put up great volume these last 3 fights, to Luque, to Cerrone, to Pereira. But as you alluded to, Oliveira he's not been looking that good these days. Like, he's, getting hurt more often. He got rocked by Randy Brown, who's historically not a big puncher, before the rear naked choke. He's been rocked in the past, like against Medeiros, and Price is really aggressive, lands 5.29 significant strikes per minute, and he hits hard. I think that Price will go under. And even if it doesn't end up being a fast finish, and to not bury the lead, I think this fight does finish quickly. But if it doesn't, Oliveira still only absorbs 2.23 significant strikes per minute because he's just pretty content to play the outside one-off game, basically, with power strikes. And on the Oliveira side, he's a low output guy, 2.86 significant strikes per minute. Against Peter Sabota, a fight that went 15 minutes, he only landed 48 total strikes. So unlike Kevin Holland, the vast majority of the total strike equity from Oliveira is coming from his significant strikes. He's not really pitter pattering you, in the clinch or from bottom position, things like that. I'm looking here, even against Nicholas Dalby, 31 total strikes in a fight that went 15 minutes here. So the stats like it, even on the Price side. I know that we talked about recently, he's been high volume, but in the general aggregate of Price's career, I think that it's pointing me towards the less and less here. So I think this fight does get finished quickly, but even if it doesn't, I still like our chances here to go under or less and less, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I almost feel like Nico Price is a shoe-in for the Knockout King, so I purposely didn't include him in my pick. But before we get to the Knockout Kings, I just want to add to AJ's point. I like the less and less. I think Nico Price, as I said, he's young, he's hungry, coming out with the fire. And like Charles Oliveira losing 5 out of his last 7 fights just does not vote well. And getting finished in 2 straight fights, I think Nico Price has the ability to make it 3 straight. Jason, on the other end there, can you take us over to less and less from both of us, please? And thank you, sir. And we are in line with how we see the fight playing out. Jason, on the back end there, may you please take us to one of my favorite female fights that has been moved? I think we talked about it before, but I'm so fired up to see Aspen Ladd take on Macy Chiasson. I love Aspen Ladd. You got an 8-1 girl in Chiasson, a 9-1 girl in Aspen Ladd, 2 losses. Holy moly, prospects, especially in the girls, because, it's an exciting time. And we're talking about people that need to challenge Valentina, people that need to challenge Amanda. So let's see some new blood and see who comes out of this. Personally, I think Aspen Ladd is just going to be too much, and she's going to get the finish on Macy Chiasson. I mean, Aspen Ladd is just a beast. She has 3 knockout wins in the UFC. I expect this to be a competitive bout, but for me, Aspen Ladd is the real deal.
Yeah, I think Aspen Ladd rolls as well. It's just a matter of if and when she finishes. Chiasson is no secret. She has bad takedown defense, 64%. Maybe there's a little bit questions on Ladd, coming in here on an ACL and MCL tear, but historically her wrestling should be good enough to get the fight to the ground. And as you alluded to, she's got some of the best ground and pound in the UFC. She's just so hyper aggressive with it. And it easily could lead to a stoppage, against Tanya Evinger. Just one mistake from Evinger on the ground, Ladd gets in an advantageous position and finisher. The question on Chiasson is, I think Ladd could take her down and control her. It's just a matter of how much ground and pound she lands. I'm going to lean with the more and more, more on Ladd and less on Chiasson. I don't have as good of a feel for this one because just kind of the unknowns on Ladd. She hasn't fought since December 2019. I could see her coming in a little bit hesitant. Again, I'm still sold on her chances of winning. But in terms of like what she'll actually want to do, how aggressive she'll be, that is my question. But that said, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for her to just rack up ground strikes, Macy to tough it out for a bit, and Ladd could get a late stoppage. If not, this fight could go the distance, in which case that would hit. And then Macy, not very active from the bottom position, more so a top control grappler with her ground and pound. And even on the feet, she's got some reach. She get her volume more so from significant strikes. But again, I'm going to side with the less here on Macy. I don't think she's going to get a whole lot of offense on the ground.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I have the more for Ladd and the less on Macy Chiasson. I really wanted to touch on it because about just the talent that Aspen Ladd brings to the table, I think could be challenging. And especially like she's not the biggest girl at 5'6", right, for the 135 division. So I think it would be great to see her maybe move down in the future and maybe challenge Valentina, as I previously had alluded to. But I think you mentioned it, man. From what I've seen on tape from her ability to take girls down and beat them up is really unprecedented from a wrestling standpoint in women's mixed martial arts to this point that I've seen. Like, she is the closest thing to a female juggernaut that I have seen from a ground and pound perspective. Obviously, Amanda Nunes, Chris Cyborg, they'll knock you out on your feet in 2.3 seconds. Ronda Rousey will throw you around with her judo. But when I'm talking pure mean, get on top of you and punch you in the face till you look like Brian Ortega from last weekend, that is what I'm talking about. That's why I like more on Aspen Ladd and less on Macy Chiasson, and I like Aspen Ladd in that fight. AJ, should we check out some Knockout Kings contests now?
Of course, let's do it.
Well, we just talked about Aspen Ladd, so pop her in there for me, Jason. I don't know if AJ wants to keep her hanging around. As I said before, 3 knockouts in the UFC, an absolute beast. You know, AJ said we haven't seen her since 2019, so it's a little up in the air. But again, I think if anything, that leads to more takedowns and more smashing and gashing where she's comfortable. So I think Aspen Ladd pounds out the finish there. AJ, I'll let you have the next one.
Yeah. This one, okay. So one that I think we'd more likely agree on would be the Nico Price selection here against Oliveira. I know that Nico has not gotten a knockout recently, and he wasn't able to knock out Cerrone, who has historically shown questionable durability, but make no mistake, we know that this guy has power. He's been able to knock out guys with on the ground, on his back even. It's just crazy. He could generate so much knockout power on the ground. It's just crazy. So I like Price here to go up against Oliveira, hit him hard, and then probably hurt him. Just seeing Oliveira hurt by Randy Brown not all that long ago gives me a lot of confidence that Nico, with his aggressive style, can maybe even pour it on late in Oliveira, kind of like he did with Pereira, and get a TKO stoppage, if not just one big shot putting him out. So I like Nico Price.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Nico Price pick. Another guy that I like is Joe Solecki. Now, Jared Flash Gordon has been knocked out in 3 out of his 6 Octagon appearances. I like Solecki to get another dirty ground and pound finish, grind him out, and finish him on the ground. AJ, what do you think of the Flash Gordon pick? And then what would your third and final? 2 questions at once, but what would your third and final be? And what do you think about Joe Solecki over Flash Gordon?
Yeah, I think as far as the matchup goes, it's a tough one to call just because Gordon pushes such a crazy pace, and I don't know how Solecki's going to react to that. He's been fighting rather slow tempos where he's been able to take guys down and stall them out on top or submit them quickly, like in the case of Hubbard. So I don't have a great read on who wins, but for your knockout king, I think it makes sense considering Gordon's been hurt several times, and by guys like, I know Oliveira is the champ and he's a great fighter and everything. I know that Carlos Diego Ferreira is a good fighter, but are they really historically that big of punchers? I mean, I was looking through the stats, not really. I mean, they got some power, I guess, but Solecki he's a decent striker. The holdup for me, and ultimately why I can't put him in as my third one, is he doesn't have a lot of knockouts on his resume. It's a lot of submissions. So I'm not putting it past him. I think it's possible, but more so I would hone in on somebody from the main event, since we're so confident that somebody could get a knockout there. And my preferred option is still Santos. If somebody wants to throw in Walker, that's fine too. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I don't think you could go wrong with either guy. Neither guy's really a submission threat. And if we just think that this fight's going to play out on the feet, really no grappling whatsoever, then why not take somebody from the main event? But my preferred option is Santos.
Yeah, well, my fourth option was Johnny Walker. I think he's faster. I think he's stronger. 4 knockouts out of 5 UFC wins. And I said, I would take Santos, but his movement just isn't there. And if you can't move against a guy that has the reach advantage, that is hungrier, that's younger, it doesn't look good for me, for Santos. I just don't think it's a great matchup. That's why I'm leaning towards Johnny Walker. And that's why we're going to have to reconvene next week, AJ, and see who's right and who's wrong on Monkey Knife Fight. But we did kill it with the KO Kings. Folks, make sure you head over to ajmmabetting.com. Sign up, see all of AJ's picks. He does Bellator as well as UFC and a little bit of everything, don't you, AJ?
Yeah, occasionally PFL, also Contender Series prize picks. Trying to diversify my exposure here in this MMA space, but I could only commit to so much. So Bellator and UFC is a priority for me this week, with some other endeavors as well sprinkled in. Yeah, my buddy Aaron Jeffrey had a tough night on the Contender Series last night. Didn't go our way. So see you back in the gym, Aaron. United Boxing Club when you're back in Toronto, but go get him, buddy. Don't give up anytime soon. Folks, I'm Connor Rowntree. That's AJ Schullo. Remember to hit it hard.